be here, just among all this incredible stuff. In this segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about the museum itself, why it's here, and also some of the adventures that went into creating it. But we've also got some more dinosaur chat that we want to have. There'll be some questions from the audience too, I think. Let me just say again that sitting here is Richard Conniff, the author of House of Lost Worlds, Dinosaurs, Dynasties, and the Story of Life on Earth. So the story of this museum. Jacques Gauthier, he is the curator of vertebrate paleontology at the Peabody Museum. Now joining us is Richard Kissel, a paleontologist and director of public programs at the Peabody. He oversaw planning and installation of the museum's current exhibit, Treasures of the Peabody, 150 Years of Exploration and Discovery. So during the break, somebody from the audience said, maybe just say a little bit more about that mass extinction event. So Jacques, fill us in. What actually happened and when did it happen? How did almost everything get wiped out?
Well, here we are in what's been described as the Sistine Chapel of evolutionism, right? From that terrific, spectacular mural that starts out with the emergence on land, ends up with the asteroid extinction. We've known forever that all the dinosaurs have disappeared, the big ones at least, around 66 million years ago. But why had always been a problem, and one argued about it. And you could kind of see the artist's notion at the time. See, he put those big volcanoes in there. We're trying to get like, what happened to them? But in no small way, we wouldn't even be here if not for this event. That an asteroid streaked out from space and hit in the Yucatan Peninsula. We have the impact crater. We know that it struck the planet at an oblique angle, and its ejecta field landed on western North America, and I guess took out T-Rex. But if you'll see below that magnolia up there's little Cymolestes, little tiny rat-sized mammals. And for 180 million years, we're living right there with the dinosaurs, only coming out at night, right? And staying really small, living up in trees. And it wasn't until the dinosaurs, the big ones at least, disappeared, that the mammals had the gumption to come down out of trees, start coming out in the daytime, and take over the world. But we have a lot of evidence now for this impact, and we can see a layer out there, right, at 66 million years ago, where there's shock quartz and iridium that's only found in primordial structures from outer space. And a lot of great data for this impact. It happens to be right at the same time you get Triceratops nosehorn within a foot or two of this, and they're gone after that.
That might be another example of one of those meso-facts, because I certainly grew up with the idea, well, we don't really know. There's 5 or 6 competing theories about why the dinosaurs became extinct. And I guess there aren't 5 or 6 competing theories anymore. Hey, I want to talk more about sort of where we're sitting right now. Dick Conniff, in your book, you really get out into a lot of the personalities. You've already alluded to one of them. But in some ways, the early part of this is the story of a guy named O.C. Marsh, who was not forgotten by history, and also a pretty amusing, although perhaps not to them, rivalry between two guys, Marsh and Cope. So give us a sense of what's going on there.
Well, so Marsh was a latecomer to Yale. He was 24, I think, when he started here, and he was interested in minerals at the time, and then wanted to become a faculty member here, and they said, well, you know, he was a good student, and they said, well, we have an opening, but only for a paleontologist. And at that point, he said, well, so much for mineralogy, I'll become a paleontologist. And it was a good thing, because basically everything you're looking at in this room, and the room itself, is the result of O.C. Marsh's work. He was distinguished not just by his great science, but also because he had an uncle, and that uncle was the richest man in the world. And George Peabody had started out as nobody at all in Boston, had to leave school and take care of his family, went to start a retail business which grew into an international trading company, and eventually he became he moved to London and became a mercantile banker. And so he had scads of money earned in a single lifetime, and then he did this unprecedented thing of giving it away, almost all of it. And some of it came to Yale to create this museum for his nephew.
Was it 150 grand that got this started?
It was nothing. Yeah, even if if you do the inflation, it's like $2 million. Yeah. You can't get a building. You can't get your name on a building for $2 million these days.
And I guess it was nip and tuck too, because more of the family had gone to Harvard. Really, O.C. Marsh was kind of the outlier down here at Yale.
He was the outlier. He had come here because this was a really strong science school because of a guy named Silliman, Benjamin Silliman, and it was really strong on minerals in particular. So yeah, and then he persuaded his uncle not just to give an equal amount to Yale as to Harvard, but he also told him what he ought to be giving his money to Harvard to do.
If we started to get into the whole story of Marsh and Cope and their rivalry, we'd use up the whole show, and anyway, people should read your book. But these are two guys who really became they were friends for a little while, then not such great friends. And I just want you to tell one illustrative story, and that's the one where I think it's Cope gets the head on the wrong end of the dinosaur.
Oh yeah, that's a really embarrassing thing. And it was Elasmosaurus, and he put the head on the tail, and he had it was a published article that was in print and out in the streets, and O.C. Marsh pointed out to him, not at all gently, because O.C. Marsh wasn't a gentle guy, that it was in fact backwards. And Cope tried to buy up all the copies and take them out of print, except that over the years, as their rivalry developed, Marsh secretly bought up all those that he could find and saved them for later use. And so the one theory is that their rivalry began that way, and the other theory is that, and this is Cope's side of the story, that Marsh and he were out, and Marsh and Cope were out collecting in New Jersey, in the marl pits there. And as they were collecting, Marsh was going behind Cope's back and buying out his contacts there and making them send their specimens to him instead. So either way, not a very edifying start to one of the worst scientific rivalries in all of the history of science.
I like the first story because I just picture it being like Norm and Cliff from Cheers, you know? It's like, I think you got the head on the wrong end of the dinosaur. I don't think so. I think I got the head on the correct end. No, I think you're wrong. And part of the problem was he had it kind of, it would seem like the neck would be shorter than the tail, right? That sort of made sense that the neck of something would be shorter than its tail. It happened not to be the case with this thing, right?
It did indeed, and as I say, Marsh was always a sort of superior guy and wanted to let people know how superior he was, and made it painful to him.
So I want to talk more about what else is in this museum. And Richard Kissel, maybe you can come in here to this conversation too. I know from reading Dick's book, and even just like on the loading dock today, I'm talking to somebody who's telling me interesting stuff that's going on up in the mineral collection. But if you were to tell somebody the two or three things that aren't dinosaurs that are in this building that would blow people's minds, I'm sure you've got more than two or three things.
Sure. Ultimately, when you look at our collections, we have more than 13 million objects total in our collections, A to Z, anthropology and zoology. And when our visitors walk through the galleries, they see about 5,000 of those 13 million. And so what we have on public view is really less than 1% of the entire collection. And when we were working on this current exhibition, the Treasures of the Peabody exhibition, that was the real challenge, was how do we communicate to our visitors and to the community here in New Haven that dinosaurs are a very important part of this story, but they are a part of this story. So some of the objects that we pulled out that I love to highlight in that exhibition, we have a 16-foot tapeworm, which we're very proud of to have on display.
It's a Yale-educated tapeworm.
It was extracted from a Yale College student on March 18th in 1896. And the first professor of zoology at Yale, Addison Barrow, one of his interests was parasitology. And so that's one of the great specimens we have.
People aren't going to get excited about a 16-foot tapeworm.
But Barrel and the giant squid.
Yeah, and he was also a collector of the giant squid. But I think one of my truly favorite specimens that we brought out on exhibition for this for this new display is the skull of a quagga, which is an extinct type of zebra. And it's from our mammalogy collection. And not only is it rare in that it's a specimen from an extinct species, but there's only a handful of skeletons known from this species. And the animal, the species, only one individual was ever photographed while it was alive. And the specimen that we have here in the museum is that individual. And so kind of as you're boiling down into the rarest of the rare, I think that's a pretty dramatic example of the impact and the importance of natural history collections.
Isn't that one of the creatures that they're re-extincting? What's that word?
De-extinction.
De-extincting.
Re-extincting would be bad.
Yeah.
They're trying, using modern zebra species to get something similar, but it's still genetically distinct from what that species
I think in
was.
Petco you can get like a miniature quagga, but not, it's not a full set. So Dick, we got to talk about a few other things just from your book. You got to talk about the salivometer. Is that how we say it? The saliva.
Well, yeah, that's Pavlov, when he did his famous experiments on dogs, he had to measure their saliva, and the instrument that he used for measuring dogs' saliva improbably came from Leningrad and wound up in New Haven at the Peabody Museum. And this happened because one of the scientists from Yale, a guy named Robert Yerkes, was visiting with his daughter at Pavlov's lab, and Pavlov gave it to her as a gift. A very odd gift, but a gift. So you know those experiments about dogs salivating and bells ringing and all that? That's it. This is it.
No, a salivometer is the gift of love. But that is true. We talk about Pavlovian responses. It never occurred to me that there was some specific saliva measuring thing.
Yeah.
You know, and the idea that it would be here is that much more exciting. Jacques, in just a second, I'm going to ask you the most exciting thing to you that's not a dinosaur in this building, but so I'm going to give you a second to think about what that is. But Dick, also, there's some other stuff from your book, including, isn't there like some, I don't know, kind of funky little thing that's actually turns out to be tagged by Darwin?
Oh yeah, there's
I
forget what it is. Is it a liverwort?
Yep.
Yeah, is it on display now in the next room?
Yeah.
So yeah, somebody was pretty recently going through the botanical collection and saw this little bit of fruit that looked like nothing at all, and looked a little closely, and there's the label, and it was collected by Darwin while he was on his round-the-world expeditions. So there's just lots of amazing little things that are in the